I'm Apple co-founder Steve Wozniak. Ask me anything. Hi Reddit, I'm Steve Wozniak. I will be participating in a Reddit AMA to answer any and all questions. I promise to answer all questions honestly, in totally open fashion, even when the answer is that I don't have an answer to a specific question or that I don't know enough to answer it. What is Tim Cook doing right or wrong in your opinion? Tim Cook is acknowledging the employees of Apple and the customers of Apple as real people. He is continuing a strong tradition that Steve Jobs was known for of making good products that help people do things they want to do in their life, and not taking the company into the roads of, oh, we'll make all our money like by knowing you and advertising to you. We'll make good products. And you know, I started out as a hardware product guy, so I'm glad to see that. I worry a little bit about, I love my Apple Watch, but it's taken us into a jewelry market where you're going to buy a watch between $500 or $1,100 based on how important you think you are as a person. The only difference is the band in all those watches. 20 watches from $500 to $1,100. The band's the only difference? Well, this isn't the company that Apple was originally, or the company that really changed the world a lot, so it might be moving, but you've got to follow, you know? You've got to follow the paths of where the markets are. Everything else, I'm very approving of Tim Cook, because every time we have a new iOS update, I'm very happy that it's doing things that really affect people, like transferring calls from my phone to my computer, etc. I really love even the AirPlay and all that. So I love the software and I love the hardware, and nothing's letting me down. So I approve strongly of Tim Cook and the new Apple. I dearly miss Steve Jobs too, but that's all. What are your thoughts on the FBI DOJ versus Apple ordeal at the moment? All through my time with personal computers from the start, I developed an attitude that things like movement towards newer, better technologies, like the Macintosh computer, like the touchscreen of the iPhone, that these were making the human more important than the technology. We did not have to modify our ways of living, so the human became very important to me. And how do you represent what humanity is? You know what? I have things in my head. Some very special people in my life that I don't talk about, that mean so much to me from the past. Those little things that I keep in my head are my little secrets. It's a part of my important world. My whole essence of my being. I also believe in honesty. If you tell somebody, I am not snooping on you, or I am giving you some level of privacy, I will not look in your drawers, then you should keep your word and be honest. And I always try to avoid being a snoop myself. And it's rare in time that we can look back and say, how should humans be treated? Not, how can the police run everything? I was brought up in a time when communist Russia under Stalin was thought to be everybody is spied on, everybody is looked into, every little thing can get you secretly thrown into prison. And no, we had our Bill of Rights, and it's just dear to me. The Bill of Rights says some bad people won't do certain bad things because we're protecting humans to live as humans. So I come from the side of personal liberties, but there are also other problems. Twice in my life, I wrote things that could have been viruses. I threw away every bit of source code. I just gotta chill inside. These are dangerous, dangerous things. And if some code gets written in an Apple product that lets people in, bad people are going to find their way to it. Very likely. Steve, what's the greatest invention that you wished you designed? That question might be too hard for any human being. The greatest invention? I just described one, which was a device to pop anywhere. Real tiny into a glove compartment, a backpack, whatever, and be able to locate it wherever it is in the world. There are some devices that kind of claim that now, but they don't really work sufficiently. A device that gives us 1 extra hour per day? Thank you for doing this, Steve. Even though you left in 1985, what was your relationship with the company like after, and how has that changed compared to now? Are you, for example, allowed to go and visit any colleagues that still work there, or are you simply another outsider? Well, obviously Apple is the most important thing ever in my life. And it would be no matter what I might go off and try to do outside and say. No, I would only say one thing. I am Apple. When I left in 85, the same as when I left in 81, I actually remained an employee on a slight payroll. I had a letter from Apple wishing me luck. I sat on a blackboard and showed them what my intent was to go and create as a product, and there was absolutely no conflict. I like to live a life where kinda everyone likes me. I'm just not bad. If somebody is bad to me, I'm still good to them. Somehow, I grew up with these values that seem kind of incredible, so I always was on good terms with Apple, and they always liked me. I'm always welcome. I could come by, Steve Jobs would always make sure I had a badge that could get me into any building. I didn't use it much, but I can go there. The only trouble is I'll get mobbed. What is the most funny prank that you've pulled? I get asked that everywhere. I have pulled so many hundreds of pranks. I pull pranks almost every day, so I can't come up with one funniest prank. Sometimes I like to talk about early ones. When I was young, how could I have thought of it? I did like the one where I put a little ticking electronic metronome in a school locker back when very few people could build such things as a ticking metronome. And I had it rigged so that when you open the locker, a little tinfoil switch caused the ticking to speed up. What is your opinion on how immersive our technology is becoming? We use computers in some form almost constantly. Do you ever feel in your own life that it's becoming overwhelming? I have that feeling all the time because I like a nice, quiet, simple life. I grew up shy. I'm more into products than I'm into socializing. I do not carry around my phone answering every text message instantly. I'm not one of those people. I wait until I'm alone in my places and get on my computer and do things where I think I'm more efficient. I really see a lot of people that are dragged into it, but I don't criticize them. When you have change, it's not that the change in how people are behaving different to you is bad or good. It's just different. So that's sort of the modern way. And the millennials. Every generation wants to criticize the next generation for missing out on things like personal human contact, but I'll tell you a little story. When we started Apple, Steve Jobs and I talked about how we wanted to make blind people as equal and capable as sighted people. And you'd have to say we succeeded when you look at all the people walking down the sidewalk, looking down at something in their hands, and totally oblivious to everything around them. Do you still tinker? I don't tinker the way I did in the old days. The last time I tinkered was to build a little Segway key burner where I could twist some dials, set my own speed codes on it, and tell the Segway how fast it was allowed to go. I keep my soldering iron and tools handy, but I have such a busy life. Public speaking, I'm with a company that's working on storage and data centers, I'm putting on Comic-Cons. Such a busy life, it's hard to get the time to tinker, but I admire the young people and my older friends who do that. I just admire them so greatly. It's really where the great future products are going to come from. I think it's much less important to get somebody who has PhDs in all these subjects. If you can find somebody who never went to college but has built a lot of things as a tinkerer, knows how to operate the equipment, run into their own little garage or laboratory quickly and whip something out, that's the person that companies are missing out on, and all their requisition requirements overlook those people. Who was the first person to call you Woz? I don't remember who first called me Woz. I remember that nickname started coming to me when I was working at Hewlett-Packard 73, 74, 75, around the time of Apple for some reason. So that became sort of a name I used to identify myself with Apple and the new products. I found out later in life that almost every Wozniak gets the nickname Woz over time. Their friends just started calling them that. My uncle is Uncle Woz. My son, his friends call him Woz. And I turn to my kid and I realize they're talking to Gary instead. So it goes back. It's just nice. I like short, simple things in technology, so I like shortening my name. I like shortening my signature. And what a privilege to grow up like Sting, where one word and people know who you are. What do you consider the most difficult obstacle you've ever had to overcome? I had an easy life. I was so good in math, science, electronics, computers, way ahead of the world that I would never have to worry about a job. So I didn't even have obstacles of how am I going to get a good job or do these things. Certainly, in my early design days, I sometimes tackled problems that I didn't know if it was possible to solve, but when I'd get there, I'd try to look for a solution, and somehow, I always found it. Magic was pouring out of me back in those days. In later times, well, I've had divorces, so I guess you could say those are obstacles in life that I regret, but sometimes you grow up with a geekish personality that isn't really very social, and I don't know, you wind up in places you shouldn't have been. Let's see, other obstacles. I described one earlier about a product I was trying to make to locate things like pets in cars and briefcases. The obstacles that I ran into were whether I could come up with some magic ideas. And I did come up with at least one magic idea, but it didn't achieve the results I wanted in terms of price, power usage, and size. Basically, I think obstacles do a lot with dealing with people, and I work very independently as far as I can. And then turn it over to others in very complete forms. So I didn't have a lot of obstacles some people would talk about. Obviously in business, we ran into obstacles at Apple. We all believed so much in doing the right thing and building the Macintosh for the future rather than keeping with dumb old computers of the past and trying to achieve the world market. You know, holding our percentage of the world market as it grew 10 times. We let Microsoft have all that growth because we believed in doing the right things. Would you ever look back and say you regretted it or it was an obstacle? No. It was something we had to work hard to finally build a Macintosh market and get our company back. But we did the right thing. Hi Steve, I remember hearing about how you invented the sound card from a dream you had. Have you dreamed up any new devices lately? I don't remember which sound card this is about. I actually do dream up devices that would be cool all the time, and I don't really form a list that I'm working on in my memory. I just keep them inside of me, and they come up when they're needed. Usually I'm looking for an underlying technology developed by physics people and chemistry people on a new type of chip that didn't exist before that makes something possible that wasn't possible before. I had a startup company to make a little device that would be very low cost, like $30 in the grocery store, and you could just pop in anywhere and the battery would last for a year, and it would be a little detection device that would notify you if your dog got out of the fence at home or where your car is located if you forget, and I failed. I failed on technology grounds of cost, size, and the amount of power usage. But I swear to God, I just keep thinking all the time about the technology advances that would have to be done to make that device possible. So maybe I'll even get back to it someday. Are you still part of a Segway Polo League? I am a part, but not as much as I was. I used to be on a team that practiced every week, and now I'm not around very much, and they don't have that many practices around where I live. So kind of about once a year when the final international championship comes up, or the European championships, I'll fly over and participate and play. It's a skill you don't totally forget, but if you're thinking about polo, you have to have strong hands with a mallet, and I have very weak hands now. I'm getting older, so I'm not really a good player. But I was a very good player once, and I love that sport very much. My wife and I both play it, and we even got married at one of the Segway polo matches on 08/08/08 at 8:08 p.m., of course.
What is your favorite up-and-coming gadget? Anything people don't know about it yet? Well, I would think probably one of them is certainly the Oculus Rift, or any of the VR headsets. I love putting mine on and watching a basketball game live. It was just an experience that you can't believe. Sometimes I come out of a VR world, take off the helmet, and I can't believe I'm actually sitting in my office, at a desk, at home. So that's one of the big ones. Right now, Amazon Echo. It's getting so popular among the people that use it and speak so highly of it, and it's so inexpensive. I see a lot of developers that went into smartphones jumping onto it. It's a platform, and when you have a platform that everybody else is writing apps for and connecting to, basically they're advertising your company as much as you are. Obviously, I'm very interested in the evolution of self-driving cars. Right now, the assist that they give you for keeping in your lane in cruise control, the cruise control started back in 2004 actually, adjusting your distance. I love driving my Tesla so much. I just smile, I sit there in the driver's seat, and kinda just look over at my wife, and I just smile. I'm so happy, not using my hands or feet. So I think of the progression towards self-driving cars is going to be a good one, but it falls into that category of AI. Now, the AI that impresses me, I fell in love 10 years ago. Well, not 10 years ago, but whenever it started. Siri was an app that you could buy for the iPhone, and I bought it. And for 1 year, Apple didn't have it. I just spoke of it as the app that changed my life, because I get to live as a human, saying things out of my head the way I would do forever to another human, and the machine understands me. And I wanted that future to be forever. Actually, ever since our Newton message pad where I could type in Sarah Dentist Tuesday 2 p.m. and click the assist button, it would open up the calendar, Tuesday at 2 p.m., put the word dentist, and it would grab Sarah out of my contacts list. I hand wrote with my own muscles a message for myself. For a human and a machine understood me, so I wanted that to get better and better. Machines understanding what we meant, so we can eventually communicate with them as our best, most trusted friends that know our own hearts and souls better than other humans. Hi Steve, thanks for doing this AMA. My question for you is, how did you stay focused in college and work? I was lucky to be a good, top student, getting the math awards at my schools, so you get a little bit of a head start, and things like STEM subjects build upon each other. If you've been good the year before, you're more likely to do well the next year. When I was in college though, I was actually rather unfocused. I had my own loves in my life that were not taught. All the way through school, we had nothing about computers. No books in bookstores, not even magazines, and that was the passion of my life. So, I'd stumbled into things by accident, and I'm very thankful for all of those accidents, but I tended to get an idea in my head, and I just want to go off into that direction and do it. A focused student is someone who does all the right homework, gets all the right grades, and they answer all the questions in the same way somebody else. That's called smart, and I don't know. I always wanted to be in a different world, think differently, so I wasn't all that focused. I just kept building things for the fun of it. And I wasn't worried about I've got to meet some spec to have a company that makes money, so I'm very thankful that I had a great friend who was always after having companies and money and turning things into more, and that was Steve Jobs. Hi, first of all, you're my greatest idol. I was wondering, why did you leave Apple? Hi Clyde, thanks. I left Apple partly because I wanted to be like a normal person. I didn't want to seek wealth and power, because in my mind it often corrupts people. And I didn't want to be that person who runs a company. The first time I left Apple, it was an odd accident. I had a plane crash as a pilot. I didn't come out of an amnesia state for 5 weeks, where I didn't know time was passing. When I came out of the amnesia, I realized that the Macintosh team, they were my favorite, most creative thinking team at Apple, and I was on that team, would be fine without me. So I called up Steve Jobs and told him, Macintosh team's in great shape. I'm gonna go back to college and get my degree. I had 1 year left to go. If I waited another year, it would be too late to ever go back to college. So I went back to Berkeley under the fake name Rocky Raccoon Clark, and that's what it says on my Berkeley diploma. That was the first time I left Apple. I came back and worked as an engineer. When the Macintosh project failed, we had to recover some Apple products. Took us to the Apple's IIGS to keep some money coming into the company for a while we built the Macintosh market. And then I left the second time because I love startups. I just love a group of 2 or 3 or 5 people talking about the idea and going out to make it a reality. It may not be all the millions and billions of dollars in the world, but it's something that you're doing yourself. The idea I came up with was for the first universal remote control, the CL9 core, so I left Apple to build that.